This brings us to the second distortion, reification. When we actually think that the things we are naming are really there in the world, that things such as rivers and canyons actually exist, we are falling into the second trap of language. We are reifying our own concepts. Reification refers to when you mentally create something, a concept of some sort, and then you believe that it's actually there in the world, when it isn't there at all. So for example, when you think that there really is a river here, and that it is located down there at the bottom of this canyon, between its two banks, you are taking your mental concept of river and inserting it into the world. This river that you are inserting into the world follows all the rules of language. It is an isolated object. It is named. It is clearly defined and distinguished from nearby objects. The problem is that that river, the one that follows linguistic rules, isn't really there. The real river, if one should attempt to define such a thing, extends all the way up the canyon walls, into the clouds, outwards to the farthest topological peaks, and into the atmosphere. The real river extends hundreds of centuries backwards in time. No matter how far back you go, either in time or space, you will never really find the final edges of this river. That is the river that's really there, right in front of you. And this is true for absolutely everything on your map. Your mailbox, your partner, the neighbor's dog. You construct a map of the world that is filled with discrete entities, all with clear edges. Your partner stops at his or her skin. The mailbox is a metal object surrounded by empty space. You then proceed to reify these mental ideas. You think they are real. You insert them into the world and think they're really there. The British philosopher Alfred North Whitehead considered reification to be the single most serious mistake that humans make in perceiving the world. Whitehead called reification the fallacy of misplaced concreteness. The fallacy of misplaced concreteness points out that any time you attempt to establish a thing as something that exists at a specific spatiotemporal location, a specific location in space and time, you are required to cut off all the necessary relationships and extensions that extend outward in both space and time, which are very much a part of that thing. You may manage to establish a concrete thing, like a river, or a mailbox, or your partner. But the thing you establish doesn't really exist in the world. It exists only in your head. It's a concept. If you then go on to believe that that thing actually exists in the world, you are deluded. But this is exactly what language requires us to do. Language requires nouns like river and canyon and partner and mailbox. By establishing these abstract symbols, language allows us to think about very large concepts like weather, geography, global warming, relationships, and so on. But along the way, we start thinking that rivers and canyons are really there in the world, and that the world is an assemblage of separate things all fitting neatly together, like a finely built watch. There is a canyon, it feeds the river, and the river runs to the sea. That's a beautiful description. But that is entirely a map of the world. In the world itself, in what you're looking at, none of those three things are actually there. So when we move through the world thinking that all these things around us are really there, with definite edges and empty space between them, we are moving through a heavily reified version of world. We encounter tables and chairs and bridges and our partner, and see them as objective things, isolated in both time and space, existing at single spatiotemporal locations, and we move onwards through our landscape of nouns, thinking that we are moving through the world.